Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, community coach, podcaster, and author. And we have a distinguished guest, a friend, and a person I wanted to bring her back on the show for one specific reason. We all miss sometimes when it comes to we want to do something and we don't get it, but we never give up. We keep going. And so Kimberly is going to share a little bit about her experience running for city council and what that was like and what was the difference between the last time she ran and this time. So Kimberly, for those that don't know you, tell our community who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you again for having me on here, and thank you for your viewers for welcoming me back. This is a place that I just feel at home, so thank you. My name is Kimberly Haase. At this point in time, I am Alderwoman Kimberly Haase, and I have the opportunity to serve the city of Acworth. I'm 7 months, was sworn in on January the 2nd, 2026. And I am a businesswoman. I serve the senior community and the caregiver in that community. We help aging adults age in place, lifestyle, helping with transitioning from just aging and caregiver burnout. The name of my company is iLoveKare, and we have been serving our senior in our community for 13 years.
I love that. I've always enjoyed talking with you about service. And, a few years ago, you ran for the position and came up a little short. Tell our viewers, there's a lot of people that run and never make it.
Yeah.
What was different doing it the second time that you could kind of share with our community that made a difference, that you won very convincingly in that second time that you campaigned for, the position within the city?
So Pete, we have to go back to 2021 to really start my journey, because
Okay.
that was when I originally started to run for city council and of Acworth. And what I can say for me was the momentum and the buildup, things that I had to learn, people I had to meet, and just things personally that I had to work on to understand how to run for office. And being in a public space is a difference. I am a servant leader at heart, but this was something that I have the book knowledge, but just actually working it out and actually putting it into action was different. I like to term myself too as a first generation running into politics. So I had nothing to build off on. I'm not a native to Georgia or a native to Acworth, the city of Acworth. And so I had to show that I was not just here for a gain, that I truly, truly wanted to serve the people of Acworth and my community. And so I believe me serving and just showing with the resilience, people had to trust me. People had to know a little bit about my character to keep running, right? Because to win is always easy to see a person's character when they're winning, right?
Yep.
But how do a person carry on when they're losing? And what does that look like? And so I believe that was some things I had to learn for myself. And I had to ask myself each time I ran, Pete, was, why am I running? And have I completed the task, or at hand of why I was running. And each time I had to say no. Even though it was hard, Pete, I had to say no. And so then I had to do it again in 2023. And that's when I believe I came across you. Each time I kept coming across people, right? That was key and I needed to meet. And so in 2023, met some wonderful people, found out and learned about Rotary. Had no clue, only knew of Rotary at the older Rotary, right? And when I say older, meaning older men, white men, it wasn't inclusive women. So I knew of the history as far as that, but I did not know how much they had changed and how women were welcomed, especially in our group, and just didn't realize I needed Rotary, right? Did not realize that I needed a group of people to come along and serve with. So each time for me, Pete, I had to meet people and I had to learn a little bit about myself, but I also had to show the city of Ackworth and the residents that I truly, my motive is truly to serve the people.
You know, they always talk about, the ground game part of politicking. It's knocking on doors, talking to people, shaking hands, introducing yourself. And, I had that conversation with a friend that we know, John Bothers, and he said, before he ran, he says, if you would have told me I would have to shake hands, knock on doors, he said, I that wasn't me. And he had to step outside of that comfort to really lean into how to connect with people. What during the campaign did you have to do to step out of your comfort zone?
Lose out loud. Losing and then showing back up, right? That's hard.
Yeah.
It's different when you lose on a team, right? So it's a team effort. It's different when even when you're in school, right? When you get that grade, that's between you and your professor and you opening up them grades, right? But to lose out loud and to keep the record of how I was losing, that was something that I don't think we talk about enough, because I don't think you don't know until you're put in those positions, right? And I don't think there's anything that really prepares you for that as far as your character, right? Because then that begins to show you what is truly inside of you. And if there's need to be some corrections, then that's what you correct. But for me, I would say losing out loud, being in rooms that I knew was not wanting me to be in those rooms, and still having to have the confidence to be in those rooms and knowing within myself that I do belong, even if people didn't talk to me, if people didn't recognize me, to still be in uncomfortable rooms was something I had to get over. I'm gonna just be blunt. I had to get over, because I knew the reason I was in those rooms were for others and myself. And so for me, doing the uncomfortable, something that's uncomfortable. Yeah, those would be the two.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember Jeff Bezos said it on a shareholder call. They would rarely have 60% of what they needed to move forward, but you're never going to get 100%. You're not even going to get close, but you have to just get enough information and then move.
Yeah.
How do you keep moving? Is there a gut feeling that you go off of, that you ask a bunch of questions, and once you get the answers, you don't have completely everything. When do you know when Kimberly needs to move forward?
I have I do prayer, I do quiet
Mm-hmm.
time, I do meditation. I do believe that there is something higher than myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to be connected, especially for me when I am in unknown areas, or like I said, the first trailblazer, or someone who I don't have readily available to me to ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have to just believe to move forward. Now, me personally, moving is easy. I don't like to be stagnant. I like to learn. I like to. For me, Pete, I have to say the question would be, how do I know when to stand still and know that everything else is working, or
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I have connected with good people, and knowing that my name and who I am will reach rooms that I might not be in.
Ooh, that's so good. When I had a stroke 4.5 years ago, I started a practice I had never done in my life, which was journaling and really meditating. Having an active brain, I never did that. And if you would have told me I would be doing those two things, which I didn't normally enjoy writing, are there some things that you have done, in your journey that have honored a better Kimberly?
Yeah, I had to keep moving without. I'm social and I love family. I love everything. And I think in this journey, having to know when the season is over in relationships and keep moving,
Mm-hmm.
um, that is something that I have done. Is to know when the relationship, we have served its purpose, and having to change, to do part of that. It doesn't no longer serves me well. um, I do journal, but not as much. And journaling for me, I don't know. I'm not ready to put it out all out there quite yet because of who might find it, right? Or bringing it back up.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't fully engaged in the journaling, but I have did some things. But mine's is normally just um, being still right now, not doing
Mm-hmm.
anything, and just being still.
That's so good. We both have a connection to the senior community. I lived in one for almost 2 years. So I saw things in there that I never probably would have seen unless I lived it.
Mm-hmm.
They say to people that retire and slow down, they lose connections, meaningful purpose, and that personal growth. And when they do that, their life really tailspins and ends. How do you challenge yourself that enables you to just keep learning, keep growing, keep going?
Putting myself in spaces I've never been in, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
require me to have to learn, right? Um, Being in spaces that I'm uncomfortable in, being in spaces that um, I don't know everything, and this is an environment to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I enjoy doing such stuff like that. I think for me is to now put myself in spaces that I can express what I have learned in my journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I'm like, oh, I'm still not there yet. Whatever there yet is, right? We all have that. I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But to give myself grace to say, but what I have accomplished, or what I have learned through my experience, I need to share with others. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Pete, that's where I am right now, is to turn around and share with others, more or less than me being in rooms and learning, because I love to learn. So that is not, I put myself in somewhere uncomfortable, learn how to read, ask questions. I can ask questions all day, but I feel like where I would be stretching now is to share and to start making pathways for people who are going to come behind me.
That's so good. So, we always step into things with an idea of what it's going to be like.
Yes.
And so, you had an idea of what serving on a city basis, what it was going to be like. What surprised you?
What surprised me, I always kind of sometimes say it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. When you get there and you're like, oh, okay. Figuring out the structure of things is one. Figuring out how that the people, I really want to get this out clearly, that I know sometimes voters or people feel like, what's the use? But we, the people, still have power, especially when you organize. So I'm hopeful and I'm glad for that, because I was kind of wondering, I didn't know, but I was like, okay, yes, we're still there. I think the key is to organize, and I think it is to continuously organize at all levels, not when something is just hot pressure and just, like, let's just take data centers right now, right? Because I think that's on top of everyone's mind on at the city level, and that's a broad conversation that it's more than just Ackworth, right? But I think to really understand, not when it's time to vote if a data center is going to be in your city or not, right? It is to truly get engaged and understand and know what data is and understand. So when you do get to the part of being with your municipal or a state level or federal level, you have strategized, and you, the people, have not burned out, but you have a momentum that can sustain you all the way through, right? And that would be, well, that's kind of what PACs are. But I think when you do it as the people, and if it is something that is interesting or for you, know to organize, know you make the difference, and just pace yourself, and don't wait till it gets to a hot topic or till it's almost you feeling like, what's the use? Start on it now. Start researching it now, and start looking at what's down the docket. Because a lot of times when it is at the municipal level, where you can come in and you can talk to your city council member, they've been working on it for about a year, 2 years, months. So this is something that you're just jumping on, but it's something that has already been worked on. So I think that would be one of the surprises, is right. So not wait until it's time to go to your meetings, but that's good. But when it's really a pressing issue, you have to be educated and informed, and know that this project probably had been working on for about some years or some months.
That's good. When you take on the responsibility like you just did with the city, you're balancing your work and your responsibility to the city. How have you handled that part of your life without like pulling your hair out?
I'll let you know when I figure that out.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, it is kind of a journey of discovery, and we're always learning, we're always figuring things out. And so the minute we say we're there
Yeah.
is the minute we start going downhill. Now, let's just say you had to write a note
Mm-hmm.
to a 20-year-old Kimberly, and you had to give her some advice based on your journey. What would that advice be?
Breathe and know all things work out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. And it's not going to come along when you think it's going to come out along, but it's always in perfect timing.
That's good. That's good advice. So, how has faith shaped your journey to where you are today?
Yeah. It has been so good for me because I can get a lot anxious about things, or again, my patience level. And so sometimes I can go in and read a book and see of others who have had trials and tribulations and weren't perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but know that things did work out and some things didn't work out, right? But knowing that at the end of the day, if I seek who I believe is the head of my life, then everything else will work itself out. So that is what I've had to, Pete, hold on to it. It's been something for me because I do have sometimes a lot of anxiety. It's just my centering
Mm-hmm.
for me, because, like you said, I do a lot of first. I do a lot of not having just people readily available to me that have walked it out. Now, once I'm there, they present their self, right? But when I first venture off, it's usually just me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. We mentioned data centers, and we're all familiar with where AI is going. The world's moving fast. It's continues and it's not going to stop. How are you using AI in what you do with your work? And are you using it any with what you're doing with the city?
Yeah, so with the city, I'm just going to a lot of different conferences and just learning about how AI can implement it within government, learning
Mm-hmm.
about all the different agents, learning about all the vendors and what they have to offer. And the city aspect, I am just learning. I'm in spaces to learn and what AI looks like for the government sector at the municipal level. My personal level, I use AI as a filler where I don't have uh, the readily available assistance. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just how to, the strategy of how to walk something out to get to a particular goal that
Mm-hmm.
I may look, editing some of my emails, or how to articulate something that sounds a little bit better and clearer than what I might write myself. But as I'm learning about AI and just building your own agents and just how it can do so much more, I have not begun to scratch the surface of how I could implement AI within iLoveKare. I think AI in the senior, as far as home health and social, I think it's going to be great as a tool overall. But I think the industry of touching and connecting, that will probably be the last to go, right? Because people still need that human touch, that human connection, that human eye contact, just when you can go into a room and you know someone for a long time and you can ask them how do they feel because you know them so well. I think we still got a little bit of time before AI can actually enter into that room. AI at this point is just being trained according to what you have fed it, but it just can't like consciously itself just ask you, you know, sincerely knowing because of your social cues that you're giving,
Yeah.
how you feel and how to direct your presence and the questions. So we've got a little bit of while in the senior sector, I think, in that aspect.
I do too. Yeah, it's going to move faster in different areas of society. What are you most excited about when you look to the future? What is Kimberly most excited about?
I'm excited because, again, taking you back, like I love to achieve, like I love to conquer, right? But I think that I'm excited to uh, bask in what I have conquered and working on it, right? Working on it, making sure that it can be at its highest level to help others and to be able to leave a mark for my family, and hopefully the loneliness of like I said in a lot of things, I was the first or I've never, that I can be able to leave to my legacy, that they don't have to say that, right? That they have someone, and that I've hopefully left a blueprint for others that they can be able to tap into, right? And that's where AI, right, will be, I'm sure, where you can ask me, right? It won't be me, but you can go like an encyclopedia, but a digital one, right? And get these conversations we're having right now, right?
Yeah.
That people will be able to pull from and be able to archive and be able to have some type of guidance. That is what I'm really excited about. And I'm excited that I feel like overall we all are in a position that there is a new frontier and we're part of that newness, right? And being able to be a part of that and have some type of fingerprint in how that is developed.
That's good. We're both in Rotary at North Cobb, and I think we met right before that, but we, meet, on a regular basis weekly. For those that, I see you as a very much a relationship type of person that connects with people. I remember saying like, "Oh, how many years have you been in Rotary?" And you said, let's go months, not years. This is back a couple of years, but it didn't appear that way from the outside. What would be a good relationship tip for somebody out there listening that wants to embrace more of that skill set, but maybe they don't know what that next step might be? What would you tell them? What would you share with them?
That's funny that you say it's a skill set, because sometimes I feel like when I get into those networking rooms, I feel awkward, because when I go in, I'm looking for a real conversation, not a transactional conversation. So I have to push myself in those rooms because I really want to have some form of connection. I don't do well with transactional relationships, even though, right, I have submerged myself in transactional type of places, right? And that's what I'm learning. And I do believe in those spaces, I'm not the only one, right? I do believe that there are others who really don't want such a transactional relationship. So when I come into the room, I honestly want to know, how are you doing? And I want to know, how are you doing really, and get to learn a little bit about you before I go into business with you. I think it's easier to slow start it than to jump in and then you're backpedaling trying to get out of the deal, the relationship, or whatever.
I agree. Yes. When we look at running a business, you're a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur. It's the hardest thing I think anybody can ever do because there's no paycheck on Friday. You have to create it, you have to create the value. What have you learned by going that route of being an entrepreneur, being a businesswoman, being somebody that's has a business in the community? What have you learned in that journey?
I'm still learning. I am. I still am learning how to. I haven't mastered it all the way there, but again, just creating good relationships with people I want to do business with, creating, letting people know in spaces what it is that I have to offer, the value. So not that I want to be transactional, but going into those spaces knowing the value in which I have for what their needs are. And that's the learning, and that's the balance that I'm still learning and working. So again, I can say even in that area, I'm still learning, Pete. I'm still figuring that out. And I'm also figuring out when I come into a room, which hat or which title I want to be. Do I want to come in and just be Kimberly Haase, the no title lady, right? Do I want to come in and am I older woman Haase from the city of Ackworth? Or do I come in the room and am I Kimberly Haase, iLoveKare? And those are the things that I'm trying to learn myself, of how to come into an environment and give that. I'm definitely open, Pete. If you have any suggestions for me, let me know. With you knowing me a little bit and knowing the different rooms that you are in with me, what that would look like. I'm all ears, because I am still learning.
I would say that's a good question. I would say that I wasn't always like that, although I was a good listener. I think the more clear we get, the more present we become. And I found myself more present with people in the last few years than kind of like the noise that always was there is not there like it used to be. So I'm listening more intently, I'm more present, and it's given kind of a deeper, and I think podcasting has helped because you have to be curious, you have to be a good listener, and you have to, I remember one podcast I did because somebody told me, well, you got to have all the questions for people. And I said, okay, this was a couple of years ago. I said, okay, so I did AI and I said, give me the 8 questions I would ask a podcast guest. So I did it on somebody we know, Sandra Glenn. And after that, I was going, this stunk because all I was thinking about was the next question. I wasn't present. I wasn't connecting with the conversation. So that was the only one I did. I threw that out. I said, never again. I won't do that again. But yeah, I think being present has really kind of been an eye opener for me. What would you say on the campaign trail?
Mm-hmm.
What was the funniest story that you could share that you came across on the trail?
Oh my gosh. The funniest. That I would have to think about that one. Because I'm gonna tell you, when I got off of that trail, I was like, thank you, baby Jesus. Woo!
Yeah.
That trail, like when I see candidates now, I'm like, ooh, thank you. Because I was on that trail for years.
Yes.
I can tell you other things, but I don't remember any the funniest.
Yeah.
I can more or less tell you about the people, how I made $2.50 work, how but I have to think about that one, Pete.
Yeah.
What was the
Okay. We
funniest?
can always have you back
Yeah, right.
at a later date, and to be able to,
Right.
because yeah,
I have to think
you're
about that
out
one.
there so much. I had a couple conversations with John Bother, and it was always, I'm always curious of what a person has to do, because when you look at something from the outside, that only tells you a little bit of the book cover, never what's inside.
Yes.
You have to read the book to
Right.
appreciate the book. You can't just, hey, I know what that book's about. Now, maybe AI is helping, and it's helped me a lot. I use Notebook LM, and I'll put it in the chat, and I'll put it in Notebook LM. And then when I read, I'm speed reading to get more out of a book. But
Mm-hmm.
always digging deeper into the story is always really interesting. At least it is for me. So, what do you, when you look ahead? I know we talked about what you're most excited about. What is a big challenge that you kind of see in the future for the city of Ackworth?
The challenge of Ackworth is to be true to its character of that small town community feel,
Mm-hmm.
and but to progressively move with the times and not leaving anyone behind. But we know with moving ahead, sometimes you do lose people, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
that's just part of growing and developing.
Yep.
But when you develop, you don't lose the character. And I think that and being able to keep that message to people who see you moving, right? That we're moving, but we're not losing the character of. And then when you get people who are transplants or who were not born and raised, to let the to for me, I would say, because I wasn't born and raised, but to get that message out that I still love Ackworth, and I love the small town feel, but I do know that it's not small, right, anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
you are having people moving in that are transplants. We want to make that feel for them just as much as for the feel of the people who were born and raised.
Mm.
And what does that look like? And how do you keep that moving forward with implementing and welcoming people who have not been born and raised here, and yet keep that small town feel,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not a small town anymore? That is something I can honestly say, that every elected official that sits at that table, we all have that same goal. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how we get there can be different, right? Because our style is different of how we got to that table, right?
Right.
But at the core, that is still what we want to make sure that we bring into the city of Ackworth. And so, with that, I'm very, very secure that we will keep that moving forward.
Mm.
And I am definitely proud of it. Going back to when you were asking me about what was funny, I can tell you about me on the campaign trail. Is people used to say on the campaign trail that I was everywhere. You are everywhere. You are everywhere. But I remember coming in contact with one of the an elected officials, and I was standing up, or I was somewhere, and I said, I'm newly elected. I just got sworn in this year. And they were like, "What? I thought you had already been elected," because I had been out there so much, out everywhere. They didn't even realize that I had not been elected. They thought I had been elected some years prior. So I think that was kind of funny, but yet it just lets you know my resilience. And I think that is something that I was able to share with younger people, that just because you have a goal, depending on where you are positioned, sometimes it takes you a while. And they saw that in real time of what that actually looked like. And I think that would be right now the message that I believe I'm giving to the younger generation is you have to keep at it.
Yes. Nothing substitutes for persistence and just keeping at it. Even Elon said, I remember listening to a number of his interviews, and it was a common thing. I'll never give up. I'll never give up. I'll never give up. So I may not get there when people think we should, but I'll never give up. I'll never give up. So I want to be respectful of time because we have a luncheon to get to. So I don't want us to be late for the luncheon. Tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of Kimberly? And then I have one final question.
Well, thank you, Pete. Well, you can go on our website, iLoveKare.com, and you can reach out that way. You can reach me at 404-692-0539. And I hope to see people out and about, me serving along beside you, or me in the same spaces you. But hey, don't hesitate to come up and say hi. I would love to make that connection with anyone that I can meet.
Awesome. I want to thank you for being a guest. And the final question is, what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from this podcast?
Anything worth having is not easy, and it questions you how bad you want it, to what extent do you want it, but you have to keep remembering, why are you there? And that if you have not reached it from what you said, why you wanted to reach that goal, then you got to keep on pushing along. And sometimes it takes different forms of what it may be. You might think it's one way, but it might be the other. You might be a support. You might be helping. But whatever it is, you just have to settle within yourself of you achieving that goal. And whatever that takes, keep on.
Wow, that's so good. Kimberly, thanks so much for being a guest. We appreciate your time and your insights and sharing your journey, over the last 4 years. It was very helpful, I know, for myself and for our community to understand the journey and understand what it takes to really go that route and the hard work it takes. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you.